would tell you anything you wanted to hear if I thought it would make you not mad at me. So even if I got a bad grade, I'm not telling you I even got my report card. If I didn't clean something, I'm going to tell you I did. I was really scared of punishment.
Welcome to How My Parents Raised Me. I'm Dawn Chitty. When we are born, we arrive here as pure and perfect souls, and the direction our life takes from that moment is deeply connected to what our parents bring to our lives. And what our parents bring to our lives is deeply connected to what their parents brought to their lives. And that's the cycle of families. I have always craved connection with real and raw stories to understand what makes you you, what makes you the absolutely unique human that you are. Stories are medicine for the soul. They can connect us and they can change the world. And so in this podcast, I'm listening to beautiful souls sharing their story. What happened to them, how they got through, and how they have healed and thrived despite everything to arrive right here in this moment. Content warning: if you are triggered by the themes of this podcast, please seek a helpline in your city. Hey, my beautiful friends. I wanted to say thank you to you if you have left a review for the podcast. When I see a new review pop up, I am always so grateful and I always read them. There is no way for me to reply to your reviews. I always think, oh, I wish I could say thank you. I wish I could reply. But if you have left a review, I truly appreciate it. It means the world to me. I am super excited to have a guest blogger on the Heal blog this week. Melanie Oliver is a holistic therapist and an emotional healing coach, and she grew up with a narcissistic mother, which left her anxious and depressed. This week, she is sharing with us her blog post, How I Healed from Depression, 5 Tips to Deeply Support Your Healing. The link to this blog post is in the show notes. It usually only takes one toxic parent to change the entire dynamic of a family. One toxic parent means everyone in the family is scrambling to be in the good books. Nobody wants to be the scapegoat. Nobody wants the entire family turned against them. In this quick chat episode, Bailey is talking about how living in fear means she started telling a lot of lies in order to stay safe. How she felt so alone and in so much pain from a very young age, and how all of her siblings were turned against her.
So growing up, I had a really bad lying problem. I would tell you anything you wanted to hear if I thought it would make you not mad at me. So even if I got a bad grade, I'm not telling you I even got my report card. If I didn't clean something, I'm going to tell you I did. I was really scared of punishment, and that made me act out in a lot of ways of that. They would always find out, of course, they're parents. And when they did, I would get in trouble. And so growing up, I didn't really get to do a lot of things. I really struggled with making friends, and I was really reserved. And when I did meet someone, I would talk too much and get too comfortable too quick, just because I guess I wanted someone to listen. And then if they found out what I told them, that's a whole nother problem. So growing up, I started getting into sexual activity extremely early. I didn't lose my virginity till I was the summer before my junior year. But before that, I was sending pictures, talking to older men, talking to people my age, pretty much anyone that would talk to me, I was messaging and sending inappropriate pictures to, and talking inappropriately to. And after I lost my virginity, I went into a downward spiral where I was addicted to not sex, but I was addicted to the high that I would get and not feeling any pain. I would just focus on that, and I was okay for that brief little bit. And then after that, I got really hooked on weed. I was constantly smoking it just to try to forget and escape where I was. And when they caught me sending and talking not dirty to people, they would send the screenshots around my family, and I was forced to read the messages to my father in his face. That was really traumatic for me because that is inappropriate talking, like, and I'm telling my dad that. It was just really uncomfortable, and I honestly felt like my privacy was being exploited. I had the whole family's eyes on me, and seeing my body, like, I was just extremely uncomfortable. And after that, I stopped caring. I just was like, well, they done seen it. Now why not keep doing it?
Yeah, I 100% understand that. It's when you've been abandoned, you're doing anything whatsoever for connection, right? We all want to connect. We all need to connect. It's a basic human need. And when you have been totally abandoned in this way, this is how you were finding a connection. This is how you were finding somebody to, I mean, it's like you're looking for love, isn't it? You're looking for the love that you never, ever received. And I totally hear you. I totally understand that, because we're just little kids. All we crave is love. We're just craving that. And the way we go about getting it often isn't the best way, but it's the only way we figured out. And so, I totally understand that that's where you found yourself. Who was actually making you read this out to your dad? Was it your stepmother?
It was my stepmother. She would, because I was really hardly ever allowed a phone growing up because I was always doing that sort of stuff. So they would take my phone away from me. But of course, me being the rebellious teenager, I would find a way. And whenever they would find out, I was forced to read the messages, and my dad would scroll through the Snapchat and see all my pictures, and they would just tell me how much, well, not my dad, my stepmom would tell me how much of a slut I am and how I'm disgusting. And if I'm being honest, I feel like that made me do it more because I was getting nothing but insults from them. And the guys I was talking to, they never insulted me, So I do feel like that's where I pretty much lived. If in a way, I was only happy when I was talking to someone.
Yeah. And that's what I think a lot of parents don't seem to understand, is that if you're not going to communicate, if you're not going to connect and try and understand and listen and help your own child, they're not going to want to talk to you. Nobody wants to talk to somebody who's being hateful. You're always going to go to whoever it is that's giving you attention, kindness, love. It's not a difficult thing for people to work out, and yet it happens for so many kids. They turn away from their own parents because they're not given any kind of acceptance or love. And I know that your stepmother was also quite physically abusive, wasn't she?
Yes, she was. She would often result to, I don't even call it spanking because it was way worse than a spank. It was a beating. And what hurts the most is whenever I would tell someone about this, it was resulted in them saying, like, for instance, her daughters would say, oh, I got it worse than you. When one time I couldn't find my hairbrush because it was too tall above my dresser. I was a little girl and I couldn't see above my dresser, and it was up there on top of my dresser and I just couldn't see it. So she told me to go brush my hair and I couldn't find it. So I told her I can't find my hairbrush. And she picked me up by my ear off the ground and made me grab it and then threw me on the ground.
Wow.
And I mean, there's numerous other times I can think of. She's yanked me out of the shower while I was naked and confronted me about the pictures I was sending, when I had nothing on, a towel in front of my own dad, while she's over here pretty much throwing me around, and I'm trying to keep the towel on me. And she didn't let me go get dressed until he told her to let me go get dressed. And it's just a lot of humiliating things that have been done. It wasn't uncommon of her, when she's yelling at me, to grab my face and squeeze it extremely hard. And I feel like that, even to this day, is still affecting me. Where if I get in any kind of altercation, I shut down and I immediately start crying because I get scared that someone's going to hurt me or even just belittle me.
Yeah. Did she ever actually try and talk to you?
The only time I would say, tried talking to me was when we had a conversation one day pretty much while she was yelling at me, not even a conversation. She said, "Is there something fucking wrong with you? Like, are you fucked up in the head?" While she was poking me in my head. And she literally said, "Is there something fucking wrong with you? Do I need to take you to get your head checked out?" And at that time was when I was really depressed. And I went into a state where I was like, maybe there is something wrong with me. Like, if I'm making her so unhappy, like, I went into a very suicidal stage. And the only reason why I could never do it was because of my little brother. I couldn't leave him by himself. And that turned me towards running away. I ran away several times.
Yeah. And when you would run away and come back, would you come back by yourself when you'd run away, or were you brought back?
Every time I was brought back, the only time that I per se came back was when I ran away for about 3 to 4 days, and I ended up going to my mom's house, asking her to pick me up. And she came pick me up, and the cops came and told me I had to come back. At the time, I was 17. And when I got back, my stepmother wasn't there. And she wasn't there for what I believe was about a day, but I slept pretty much for the first 2 days I was back, because for while I was gone, I didn't hardly sleep. I was really bad on weed, and I just couldn't get relaxed enough to sleep. And I was in almost a paranoia state, to where I was constantly thinking that they found me. And I would rather at that time had been homeless than back there. I just could not. I was so unhappy.
Yeah. And when you run away and the police bring you back, I mean, is anybody offering you any kind of assistance, any kind of counseling? Is there anything offered to help?
So after, I would say, the second or third time I ran away, they put me in a counseling to where we were going to try to repair our relationship. And when we went, I thought it was just going to be just me, or maybe just me and my dad, because at that time I didn't want a relationship with her, with my stepmom. I didn't want a relationship. I was done. I was old enough to realize how toxic of a person she was, and I didn't see her changing. So all I wanted was my dad. And she ended up coming to the first session. And during that session, the therapist asked them to tell me 3 good things about myself. And my dad, he said 3, he may have said 3 or more things, I don't quite remember. But my stepmom, all she could say about me was, I'm a very beautiful young lady. And to me, that hurt really bad because, like, you can't think of 3 things. Like, it was just a slap in the face. And that's what really pushed me over the edge of being done with her. I just felt so disrespected, and I felt like she came for no reason if she's going to be like that.
Yeah. And so did the counseling continue?
It continued for a couple of sessions, but during it, I want to say during it, I had ran away again. And that time I was gone for like a week. And my oldest brother came and got me from where I was at because I was sexually assaulted and I was severely beat up. And he came and got me, and I went to what I think is 1 or 2 more sessions after that because my dad let me move out. And I was living with my brother and my mom at the time. And after that, I ended up meeting someone who I'm still with to this day. And he was kind of my saving grace, as I like to think of it. And so I quit going to therapy because he lived pretty far away from where I was doing therapy. I would still like to be in therapy, but it's just not in the cards for me right now, maybe in the future. But I definitely do think I would still want to do it.
Yeah. So you tried to run away several times. You've had all these suicidal thoughts. You were depressed, and yet the belief around you is still, she's just a bad kid. It's interesting, isn't it?
Yes, it very much is. And what's sad is that that's still the narrative to this day. I don't have a relationship with almost anyone in my family. I only talk to my grandmother and grandfather, and I also talk to my little brother. And that's all. I've reached out to my dad, and it'll go unanswered. I am just really lost at this point on how to move forward because we were talking for about a 3-month period, maybe more, and it ended in us in an argument because he didn't want to believe how his wife is, and pretty much said that, I didn't grow up in any kind of bad situation, that it's all my fault. And that's how all my siblings feel. I have almost 13 siblings, and they all don't talk to me because of that narrative.
Yeah. And that is a narrative, isn't it? It really is. Because we all deal with things in different ways. And, there might have been other kids in the family around and about. Everybody's getting treated differently. Not everybody gets treated the same. Not everybody deals with everything the same, and it's like, well, everybody else is fine. What's wrong with you? And it's a really lonely place to be, isn't it?
It really is. One of the main things that really hurts me is growing up, whenever your parents wake you up for school, it's not supposed to be a good experience, but I feel like I got a really bad experience. When my stepmother would come wake me up, she would oftentimes wake me up by poking me on my forehead repeatedly. And then once I would wake up, she would go into her son's room and get in bed with them and, start playing with them, tell them, get up, my baby, like, just be really sweet. And that hurt really badly. Or she would just come in and flick on the light and not say a word to me. So it's just things like that I feel like people may not see it as something big, but it affected me very big.
Yeah. Well, it is, because you're already filled up with abandonment, grief, anger, like everything is already there. And then on top of that, if you're loved and cherished every day of your life and someone pokes you on the head, well, you're going to go, oh, that's annoying, right? But if you're drowning in just being abandoned and somebody pokes you like that just to wake you up, it's like the horrible icing on the cake, isn't it? It's like the extra thing that just
Yeah.
kind of, you just go, why do I need that on top of everything else? I mean, it's just everybody's experience in a family is so different, and there's no real understanding in any way for what you've been through as an individual human. And that's the hardest part, I think, isn't it? And so if I was to ask you what's the happiest you've ever felt in your life, what time do you remember?
The happiest that I would say is now. I mean, I don't think there was ever a point in my childhood where I can be like, I was genuinely happy during that time, because there just simply isn't. You know, I did enjoy going to work with my dad. That's something that we did most of the time. And I was the designated gate opener. And I mean, I really did enjoy that time, but you know, that's maybe 8 hours out of the day that were fun and happy. But after that, it's back to, you know, the same old. But genuinely now I'm the happiest that I've ever been. And that's why I really do call my fiance my saving, because if it wasn't for him, I really don't know where I'd be right now.
Thank you for being on this journey of healing and community with me. If you listen on Apple, I would love it if you could take a moment to post a review for the podcast. It would mean a lot. Check the show notes for all links recommended in this episode. If you're on Instagram, follow me at My Big Love Project, and please share this episode with someone you know needs to hear it. Thank you for joining me. You are such an incredible soul, because you are you. You are unique. Your journey is unique, and you can absolutely change the world with your story. Your time is precious, and I so appreciate you being here. Thanks for joining me. I'll catch you next week.